Olá, muito bom dia a todos. Very good morning to you all. We're going to start now this BMW talk regarding the theme, is European automotive regulation truly driving us toward a smarter and greener future, or is it time to consider new paths? So the transport sector is under increasing pressure. Climate targets are becoming more ambitious and urgent, while costs from energy to vehicles and infrastructure continue to rise. At the same time, geopolitical developments are adding new layers of uncertainty, as we've seen in the last couple of weeks. So how do we balance ambition with realism, innovation with affordability, and sustainability with competitiveness? That's what we will try to find in the next hour with our guests. Joining me on this discussion, I have today Elder Barata Pedro, General Secretary of ACAP, Associação Automóvel de Portugal. Also Christine Marcosin Legel, Chief Operating Officer at Critical Tech Works. Also joining us, Thomas Becker, Senior Vice President, External Affairs and Sustainability from BMW Group. And finally, the representative from the Portuguese Parliament, Gonçalo Lage, representing PSD. We'll start our talk. If we do have the time at the end, we'll open up the room for some questions. But now let's dive into it, and I'll start with Gonçalo. Gonçalo, the European Commission presented the automotive package end of last year with some flexibilities on the fleet targets that had been previously decided from 2030 to 2035. Do you believe the current proposal is striking the right balancing between ensuring European competitiveness and also climate goals? Are these two realities aligned?
Hi, first of all, let me congratulate for this initiative. Thank you very much for the invitation, saying hi to all my panel colleagues. I would say there is a path that we know that we have to follow. We have to make a big effort in decarbonization. We have to make a big effort on creating competitiveness for Europe as a whole. And what we were witnessing before is that with the aims that were scheduled before, we were seeing that our industry had a much quicker backlash than it was previously imagined. So, in a way that we have to keep our path towards a greener future and a greener economy concerning mobility, but in a way that we have to create the conditions for our industry to grow. We have to maintain our competitiveness, because we cannot be competitive in a world that has different measures and has different aims and different goals. So we have to always have that in mind. And there is always a very critical path that concerns the way that we are doing this change. Because in my point of view, this change cannot be pursued if we keep on following ways of outsourcing and buying and going through supply chains that are already being developed in the other parts of the world. And so we are doing this by outsourcing our industry and not being able to developing our own capabilities, our own skills, and our own industry. Because it's not only the automakers, but it's all the supply chain that is working towards this sector. And
so this rebalancing on the speed of the evolution has to do also, or has to do something to do with the supply chain, with the whole ecosystem adapting to this new reality?
In my point of view, that's the question, because if we want to do it quicker, we'll have a big problem concerning our supply chains. We are doing it in a way that we are outsourcing our supply of raw materials. We are doing it outsourcing our batteries for the new generation of vehicles, and we are doing outsourcing all of the SMEs and all of the businesses that are concerning the sector. So in my point of view, we really have to step a bit slower, think about what we're doing, because if we keep pushing our limits only in one way and only in Europe, we'll have a big problem regarding competitiveness.
Thomas, from an industry point of view, are we moving toward a potential conflict between these two realities, the climate policy objectives and also the economic reality, particularly nowadays as the energy and production costs continue to rise?
Well, I think we have a contradiction if we stick to the belief that there is...
I think that your microphone is not working.
Is it okay now?
Maybe. Is it better?
Okay, now?
I think
Okay,
it's
good. Thank you. This is a seeming contradiction. We think that you will not achieve the climate objectives if we think we can achieve them with just one single instrument.
Yeah.
And I think the analysis and the proposal done 5 years ago in Brussels was oversimplistic. Because it said there's just one technology, we just have to implement that one, and then the job is done. What we see now is markets are not developing as predicted. Portugal is one of the fastest growing EV markets in Europe. But only 5 of 27 member states are at the level of Portugal or better. Only 5. The others are way behind, including Germany, including France, not to speak about Spain and Italy. So
Why does that happen?
this happened because you have a fragmented systems of demand-side policies. You have countries like Denmark or the Netherlands, or like Portugal, who have 3 things in common, or 2 things in common. One is very strong and early investment in infrastructure.
Yeah.
And Lisbon was one of the first big cities that invested into public charging, and it pays off. The second factor is significant continuous tax advantages, not short-term incentives where you get 3,000 euros for a year and then it goes away again. We had that in Germany, unfortunately, but a continuous fiscal support on which people can rely. Unfortunately, that is not the case in every market in Europe. The likelihood that somebody is buying an electric car from BMW is 4 times higher in Portugal than in Spain. And the difference is infrastructure and taxes. So this is clearly out of our control, but as a result, as you may know, the European market for battery electric vehicles stands at 18% in 2025.
So
That is by far not an approach to 100 and also not to 90. So we need other ideas which deliver on less CO2. And that is what we are proposing, to have a combination. Electrify as fast as we can, no doubt. But also keep using the plug-in hybrid technology, which many of our customers also in Portugal buy. Almost 80% of our Portuguese customers either buy BEVs or hybrids. So why not have that play a strong role in the future?
do you wish that governments and the European institutions listen more to the automotive industry during this process?
I think there is no lack of sharing of opinions. But as you know, this is a political process where parts of the policymakers are defending what they decided 3 or 4 years ago under very different conditions. And there are others who say we need to change. We are in the we need to change camp. And just to give you another example, renewable fuels can play a big role. You have less CO2, you have less dependencies on imported mineral oil, and you would have less dependency on supply chains for EVs, which we do not control in Europe. Should we put all our eggs into one basket? I don't think so. And last remark, a good proposal which has now been made is to say, rather than us paying penalties, give the money to the European steel industry to produce greener steel. Why not do that? So at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is the ton of CO2 that goes away. And if we pay for it, why not use it in a better way than just saying, let's squeeze into the markets electric cars, even if customers are not ready for that, like in many parts of Europe, unfortunately.
And do you believe that consistency across Europe regarding regulation, incentives, and other areas could also contribute towards that objective?
Well, we will have to accept that Europe will remain fragmented. There will not be one single European market for electric cars. and we need to react with regulation to that reality. Not every country is ready to invest as heavily into electrification as Portugal is,
And
for very many reasons. We cannot ignore that.
And that's why we have to have more than one basket to put our eggs on.
I think so.
Christine, from a technology standpoint, how do you see the pace of this transition? Are current regulatory timelines aligned with what is realistically achievable in terms of innovation, but also in terms of implementation? Because sometimes it's different. Innovation and implementation have different schedules, as we've seen also with Thomas.
Yeah. So I think from a technology perspective, the ambition is right. I think the pace and rigidity of it is far away from reality. Just what Thomas said, the advancing in technology is going well, but to deploy this at scale, it depends on a lot of other things like infrastructure, customer adoption, the grid itself. So betting everything in one technology only, so full electrification by 2035, I don't believe is the right choice. Just as Thomas said, a more open technology approach is the right decision, and will be able us to accelerate electrification where it's possible. At the same time, investing on options on CO2 that could also deliver effects right now on the current fleet as well.
So it's not just a question of the timeline, it's also a question of having more options and having an open perspective regarding
Absolutely. Technology usually doesn't fail because it's slow. It fails because regulation lacks the understanding of the complexity of the system. And I think that's what's happening right now on this side.
Do you feel, as Thomas said, that when the first legislation came out, it oversimplified the problem?
Absolutely. I think it lacked to see a lot of other aspects on the CO2 emission, on the whole life cycle of the vehicle itself. Focusing only on the electrification path is absolutely not the correct, or in my opinion, not the right approach.
Do you also wish, as I asked Thomas, that European institutions listen more, were more open to have inputs from all the stakeholders, not only the automotive, but also the technology stakeholders?
Yeah, I think and I hope it's it's happening right now on the discussions on the European Union, because it is not a case only of the automobile production, it's the whole supply chain that's involved in it. And if we don't have economic resilience in this transition, we will have a very bad impact on the economic side. And I think we have to maintain our industrial capability at the same time as we are transforming it. And I think that's the key.
So that the whole ecosystem, the whole economy works at the end of the day.
Exactly, so that we can keep jobs, so that we can keep value creation across Europe at the same time.
Elder, looking at the Portuguese market, how are consumers and businesses reacting to this transformation? Is there a risk that this transition may outpace the ability of Portuguese business and also consumers to adapt? As Thomas told us before, we are quite ahead of some other markets. How are we adapting? Is it possible to move faster and to keep moving at this rate?
Okay, thank you, first of all, for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here in this talk.
Glad to have you.
Concerning this question, just two points to explain before, that 5 years ago, when all this discussion began about the targets for the car industry, at the time we defended the technological neutrality, was the position of the industry, the position of the players. The regulations became a little bit more complicated because this principle was not accepted totally in the final regulation. So we had last year also, it's very important just to mention, the Draghi report, who said that the car industry is a good example of a contradiction between the decarbonization targets and the reality of the industry and the consumers of this sector. So then became the European package last December, was some expectation of the sector about this document, not so many changes in the document. And the time, the reality in Portugal, in your question, we are in the 6th position in the ranking of 27 European countries in terms of the penetration of the electric cars. We have now 23.5% of the sales of passenger cars are electric. The average in European Union increased last times and is now in 19. As Thomas said, if you compare with some neighbor countries like Spain or even Italy, they were in a low position. Spain, I have to say that last year the government proposed a package for the automotive industry very strong in support, the incentives and other questions about the mobility that now increased and now is in 19.5 these 3 months of the year, comparing with last year is really an increase. There are many reasons to explain a little bit what happened in Portugal. One of the points that sometimes the people mention that the Portuguese, maybe a little country in the stream of Europe, you are early technological adopters. I mean, new technology, we are more open to this than maybe other countries, but this is just one point. The other point, we had the management of this system since 2010, a company called Mobi, which makes the interoperability of the old players in the energy. The legislation changed and we'll have a new system, new regulation next year.
Is it better now?
We had some good discussions about this last weeks, and we will see. We'll wait to see what will happen. Of course, we are positive, we are optimistic, and we think that it really works. In an open market, liberalization is always good in terms of competition, but in fact, till now, was a good point for our sector. Another point, I have to say, because this question of the electric cars and the sales, the regulations were made in Brussels, I mean the European Parliament, the Council, the Commission naturally, but they have to do now what we say in ACAP, the governments, they have to do their role also. It means that the incentives are very important. We have a big difference, a huge difference in European Union between countries about the system of incentives. In Portugal, we have some incentives. In our opinion, they are not enough because 2,000 cars for 2,000 electric cars is not enough to make really the decarbonization. I think the question of the renewal of the car park, because just to point one situation that in Europe, 30% of the car park has more than 20 years, is older. The average for passenger cars is 13 years, in Portugal 14.5. So to make the decarbonization, we have to have a strong package of incentives for the renewal of the car park. Unfortunately, we proposed this several times to the government. They are not enough, the system which was implemented. This is very important that at level of European Union, the Commission proposed for the member states a strong program for the renewal of the car park, because the decarbonization is not only to put in the market electric cars, it's also to make the renovation of the car park in circulation. We all see in Portugal that the park become older and older, and we have to do something also in this point.
So decarbonization should go forward not only through electrical, but diversifying and having incentives not only for electric cars, so the scope would be more broad.
Yeah, and Thomas also talked about the plug-in hybrid. We think that the plug-in hybrid are very important for decarbonization, are very important to reach the targets, because one big point that the manufacturers, 2030, 2035, they have to reach the targets, and otherwise they have to pay billions and billions of euros in penalties. So the plug-in hybrid are very important. It's a technology important, but unfortunately, the car sector in the European Union is over-regulated. We have more than 100 directives and regulations in our sector, and we have another regulation now called the utility factor that will penalize the plug-in hybrid into here. So there is a contradiction because we need the plug-in hybrids, as Thomas said, in several markets, but in Portugal also. We have some very interesting fiscal incentives for these cars. We have to maintain these cars in our sales, but in 2 years, this new regulation will penalize the plug-in hybrids, and we will see that they will decrease the penetration in the market. So we propose even the incentives that we have now just for electric cars to be for all the electrified cars. I mean, electric cars, the BEVs, but also hybrids, plug-in and the conventional hybrids, because we think that all of them are important. In our market, all of these alternative energy cars represented 73% of the market. This is very important as a whole, all the electrify, all the solutions that we need now to fulfill the targets.
Thomas, we've already seen some of the problems moving forward. We were talking just now with elders regarding the limitations that regulatory framework tends to impose to the automotive industry. Do you think that there is space to support a broader mix of technologies, or that there might be space to improve this mix of technologies, or is it still focused on the single path that we've detected, only electric, only one technology? How can we change this? Is it possible still?
I think the discussion is opening up over the last year because people have to acknowledge the market realities, first of all. But secondly, I think what is more and more understood is that there are valid alternatives. And coming back to what Christine is doing, the digital toolbox that we have today enables us to do things which were impossible even 3 years ago. Let me take an example. If you say, I sell a car that is to be fueled only with renewable diesel, HVO 100, to take that example. In the old days, you would have said, oh, I need a special pump. I need a special filling piece in the car in order to be able to show that actually it's just this fuel what goes into the vehicle. Today, you can do it digitally. We have shown that together with Bosch and Eni from the fuel industry, that without any hardware and without any cost for hardware, you can track precisely when which fuel at which pump has been put into which car. So that's just one example where you can manage things differently. Another example is about supply chains. In the old days, you could not say what kind of steel went into a car, whether it was recycled aluminum or virgin aluminum. 80% CO2 difference between virgin and recycled. Today, you can track the entire automotive supply chain digitally. And there's even an initiative called Catena X, which connects all the stages of the supply chain. So why do we stick to a regulation logic which comes from the age where the only thing you could measure was CO2 at the tailpipe? Why can't we think beyond that and say, if we can make the entire system transparent, accountable, trackable, why not do that?
Does it have to be more European, the supply chain?
I think so, because in theory, we still have a single market for cars. And we think that rules and instruments should be able to be applied across Europe. And that is what we keep proposing.
Are you not afraid that we try to enter a protectionist path?
Well, protectionism is a reflex that we have at the moment in many conversations, where people say, we need to shut down our market, we need to restrict choices because we want to somehow defend ourselves. But one needs to discuss it in a very differentiated way. If you look at the battery supply chain, 5 years ago, people thought, hey, no problem, we are going to have European battery cell producers. They will just do it like the Chinese. What's left of that? Nothing. In the same time, last year, we have learned the hard way how dependent we are on chips, on rare earths, and everything. So should we make it clear that we need clear requirements? If you want to participate in the European market, you better invest in Europe. Tick in the box. But are we well advised to say we put all our eggs into one basket? We make ourselves dependent on just one single supply chain? Is that a smart way?
It's not protectionism, it's protection?
No, it's about sovereignty. It's about resilience. It's about not depend on neither one other country, not on one resource, not on one third market, but to be able to keep choosing, to be able to say, if it doesn't work that way, hey, we have another possibility. It's not going against somebody. It's about making Europe more competitive. It's about having a market where you are closing material loops, for example. Today, to take that example, most of what gets out of old cars, old BMWs, first of all, very many of them are never recycled in Europe. They go to Africa and to the further eastern parts of the world. What is left predominantly is downcycled. Most cars end up as steel in the construction industry. We can do way better than that. We should make sure that we keep more of the cars in Europe, that we recycle them at a very high level so that you can make new cars out of the material. We should make sure that no battery material that once made it into Europe ever leaves Europe again. So a big job and a big potential lies in a circular economy in Europe.
And do you think that the automotive industry, the different players, are aligned with that vision?
I think in abstract terms, yes. In concrete terms, we just have concluded a collaboration with the Schwarzgruppe, the company that owns all the Lidl markets that you may know, to collaborate on vehicle recycling, because we want to get the cars back and we want the old material for new cars. Just to take batteries, China banned the export of recycled battery materials almost 10 years ago. No battery material leaves China except in a new Chinese car. In Europe, we don't have a single facility that can process battery recycled material. Today, old batteries, they are shredded, but the decisive step takes place outside of Europe because you have a very long licensing process for what actually is a chemical factory, and you have extremely high energy cost. And unfortunately, recycling batteries consumes about as much electricity as making them. So we need to do our homework in Europe in order to make our entire system more resilient and not rely to players outside of us to the extent we do today.
So focusing on recycling and upcycling will also be a way to move into the future and reduce environmental issues. Back to you, Gonçalo. We are looking at a big number of job losses in the automotive sector in the last couple of years, not only in Portugal but also across Europe. Do you believe that politics framed this into a successful transformation?
As we are witnessing, no. So I think that in 2024 and in 2025, we saw more than 100,000 jobs that were eliminated. The rate that new jobs are being created in this industry is not compensating nearly half. So I would say that we have a problem in hand, that it is mostly regarded to this European regulation not being able to follow a path alongside an industry strategy. I can give you a small example. Here in Portugal, regarding the MOT for the vehicles, we did something different for the motorcycles. So, because only 0.1% of the accidents with motorcycles were regarding the mechanical issues of the inspection, we said that we wanted to aim a big bet on creating conditions for more road safety, more challenges in the learning process, so that we could lower the number of people dying on the roads regarding motorcycles. The previous European directive made this possible, and we did it in Portugal. So what the European Union is now discussing is now bringing on a new agenda, how to make the countries not able to choose their own paths. So this is becoming clear in every sector. We need to, for once, realize that we cannot follow this way of excessive regulation and at the same time wish to have all our economies thriving and all our economies creating jobs. It's not going to happen. So in a way, I would say that there is really a need to let the companies invest, let the technology grow, and we have to make it with a broader way of aiming all those questions regarding the CO2 reductions. If we do it that way, I think it would be much more simpler, because we are all witnessing that we are following a path that is going to be really, really bad on all of us as Europe.
So at this point, technological openness is not answering both climate goals and industrial competitiveness?
Because what we really need is an aim in developing some kind of transition that is sustainable, and not taking a path that is leading us to industry displacement.
Okay.
And as Thomas was saying here before, if we just aim on investing all our chips in one technology, if we don't let the industry develop their own solutions, if we don't aim in creating solutions for new technologies, we are all going to follow the same way, that is going to make an outsourcing of all our supply chain, and we are going to kill an industry that is very, very important for Europe.
So you agree with what Elder and Thomas already said? Is there over-regulation in the automotive industry area?
Yes.
Can we fight that locally, nationally, or?
I mean, we try to, but there seems to be some kind of a known will in Europe that sometimes we discuss a lot of issues that are really don't matter at all for the industry. And we think that if we try to be better than others regarding climate change, if we try to be better than others, we are going to be leading innovation. But then we are going to lose jobs, we are going to lose economy, we are going to lose growth, and we'll be in a very, very serious situation. In all of these issues, we need to have a balance. And I think that this balance still has to be a big effort to that.
Do you think that even though we have lots of regulation in the automotive industry, we are not protecting our European ecosystem?
No, we are not protecting it at all.
So we need to move forward thinking about that as well. Christine, how can digital innovation help bridge the gap between sustainability ambitions and real-world implementation, particularly in making mobility systems more efficient, more connected, more user-centric? How can we do that?
It's a very good question, and I truly believe that digital innovation is really the bridge between the ambition and the implementation at the end. I can give several examples. I will start talking about data. For example, data is what transforms sustainability ideology into engineering, into real engineering. We have, for example, on the cloud, a copy of the vehicle that we have in the streets. So we are able in the cloud to analyze a lot of the sensor data. And so I'll define exactly what is going on the vehicle and what is the best solution to reduce the CO2 emission. We have, for example, we monitor as well on real time the state of health of the batteries of our vehicles. This is also actually developed here at Critical TechWorks, as well as the connectivity, just for information. Another example is as well in the new platform from BMW, the Neue Klasse. We have joined two different platforms, the driving dynamics and the powertrain control in one ECU, in one platform. And now we are able to recuperate all the braking energy into recharging the battery. This was not possible in previous architecture. So we are constantly working on new features to enhance and solve the situation of the CO2. We have to think about also smart grid, grid routing. This is all software-related topics that has a direct impact on the cost for the customer. So I truly believe that on the user-centric side, people will start using sustainable mobility once it is reliable, it is affordable, and it is accessible.
And you were talking about tech, but also about data. Do you feel that political institutions are using data and tech to build legislation, better legislation, and improving frameworks as well?
I don't think I can confirm that, because what we see right now is this rigidity on the regulation, right?
Yeah.
This focus on electrification only.
Can I rephrase
Yeah.
the question? Do you think we would have better legislation and better frameworks if lawmakers, if political institutions, European institutions, would base their lawmaking in real data?
Absolutely, absolutely. With the digitalization, we see where the bottlenecks are, and the infrastructure is a bottleneck, the grid itself is a bottleneck, customer behavior is a bottleneck. We have different incomes across Europe, different infrastructure across Europe. To ignore this diversity, I think, is a big mistake. And with data, we are able to analyze this in a much more a better way than simply focusing on one stream.
And do you feel that companies like Critical TechWorks and others will be able to collaborate in the future with these institutions towards building better legislation?
So we develop actually exclusively for BMW, and I think BMW is the one connecting the dots to the regulation part. So we, from Critical TechWorks side, we are not directly connected to it. But we directly contribute to all digital innovation on the BMW side. There is no single vehicle from BMW that leaves the factory without software from Critical TechWorks.
Can I just quickly go to you, Thomas, to see, to try to understand if are you able as BMW to give this information, this data to the political decisors? Is that important?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we can show is very precisely how people use our vehicles. So, for example, the average BMW kilometer is a commute kilometer.
Yeah.
So what our vehicles are all the time used for is to go from suburb to work and back. So that is what fed, for example, into the management system for our plug-in hybrids, where if you enter a central city zone, the car would go into the fully electric mode and recharge on the country roads going out, for example. So in order to optimize the management of the vehicle adapted to the usage patterns, this is an important input. And I must say I'm a little bit sobered, not to say disappointed, by the lack of requests by government agencies to say, hey, let's sit down, let's look into data, let's analyze what people do with their vehicles, and then see how we can, for example, lower the CO2 impact of mobility.
Do you feel
There's
that
not enough of that?
That would be more effective to have that done at an European scale or at a national or local scale?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have a very simplified discussion based on year-old average data about plug-in hybrids. Mm-hmm. It's outdated and it's not reflecting reality. You could have very easily said, hey, let's look into what people have done with these products last year. And if they didn't achieve the electric driving share that was anticipated, let's ask ourselves, why is that the case? Let's see how we can support them in driving more electrically. That is not the conversation we are having with the European Commission. The European Commission says, no, they are not used as they should. Let's kick them out. I'm simplifying. Let's just go fully electric.
So data is a good conversation starter.
I would hope so, yes. Because it's the truth. It's the reality.
Yes.
So let's look at the truth to move forward. Elder, once again to you. Portugal plays an important part, as Thomas already told us, also in the European automotive supply chain. Are Portuguese manufacturers perceiving the ongoing debate in Brussels on the future of internal combustion engines?
Yes, in fact, Portugal, we are a country with a car industry. The production in Portugal is more than 300,000 cars per year. We produce more cars per year than, for instance, Italy or Sweden, traditional countries with car industry. So we have a strong industry in the sector of car suppliers in Portugal. They supply not only the plants in Portugal, but in Europe, out of Europe also. It's very important.
But are the Portuguese manufacturers worried about this?
Yes, we are, because we have our discussions in Brussels. We have an European association also called ACIA. We are represented there in the discussions in ACIA. Normally, as Thomas said, there are an unanimous vision of what will be the future of our industry, but there are several points that we are now on the table. This question of the circular economy, the so-called circular economy, is crucial for our industry. The recyclability of the materials are important because we have a lack of raw materials in Europe. So there are big points in discussion. Recycling of batteries. Even in Portugal, we are involved in several projects with our universities, with our several companies, in order to have some projects for the recycling of the batteries in Portugal. And not only the recycling, it's very important also to talk about the reutilization of the used batteries. This is very important to store energy. There are a lot of projects, but we need in Brussels a global vision of all this industry, because we represent in the European Union 13 billion of employees in our plants. We represent 250 plants in the European Union in the car industry and all the suppliers. So I think it's very important that finally we have a global vision of the car industry. But we have to say that we cannot also be closed in the European Union. It's important also for the European industry to search other markets. We had now recently this problem of the tariffs of one big market, the United States, but the Commission is taken to have new positions, new markets. For instance, the agreement with Mercosur, the recent agreement with India. We have to open also, because you are a global industry, you are in European Union, but we have to be open to other geographies, to other parts of the world.
So, as someone said, we need to be more resilient inside Europe, but we can't close our eyes and our borders to other suppliers. Is that it?
Yes, because, the global economy was very important in the last 20 years for the developed car industry, but also for the development of the world economy. Unfortunately, last 2 or 3 years, this became a huge problem with all these questions of tariffs between China, Europe, United States. But we have to overpass this situation and become again a global industry. That is most important for all the economies, for all the countries. So we have to be resilient. The car industry is a good example of resilience. We are an industry that this year is 140 years of car industry in the world, and the resilient industry. I have to say that also in this question of the electrification, we are in the side of the solutions, not in the part of the problem, because only in European Union the car manufacturers invested more than 200 billion euros in electrification, in new projects, new technologies. The problem is not in the car industry. The problem is in the market. The consumers didn't reach the targets that we expect, and also the legislator expected at the time. So the car industry is really resilient, but we have to overpass all this. We have the capacity to overpass the situation.
We're almost ending our time. I would just like to go around everyone with the same questions. I'll start with Christine. How can this transition be designed in a way that remains both socially acceptable and also economically viable, ensuring that no one, individuals, businesses, are left behind? How do you think we can move forward balanced?
I think these three columns are exactly the right ones. So we need to focus on what is right for the environment, but we cannot forget the social impact of it, and we need a resilience economic for it. So I truly believe that a technology open approach is the right choice to solve this issue that we have, maintaining or making sure that electrification can accelerate where the conditions allow, at the same time as investing in other technologies and other measures that has direct impact on the CO2 emission. Keeping jobs in Europe, saving our supply chain as well, and making sure we have added value here in the European Union.
Is that hard for a legislator, Gonçalo, to balance all of these aspects?
I would say no, it's not hard because even as Thomas was just saying, data is the most crucial factor for any policymaker. If we think that we can make regulations, if we think that we can change laws without looking at data, we are doing a very, very bad job. Even nowadays, we are in our parliament here in Portugal, changing the regulation regarding the online platforms for the mobility. We've made more than 30 meetings with all the players, all the industry, all the associations, even the customers. I myself, I used to go on Ubers, I would call a Uber and a Bolt, and I would talk to the drivers several times to see what they thought about the changes that we are doing. If I don't do this, I'm doing a terrible job. I need to do this regulation concerning the whole country as a whole and concerning the citizen. I cannot do it if I don't have the right data, and if that data isn't trustworthy, because that data really has to be a good data, and that data is an opportunity for us to make good policies and to have a better solution at the end. But in this case, I think there is a big problem concerning the accessibility. I mean, this change cannot be just made for people that can afford it. So we need to guarantee that it can be made for any household to be able to reach it. And we also have to think about making this transition technologically neutral, because as we all said before, we are betting in excessive way regarding all the questions of the electric vehicles. And we have to make a big development in investing in reskilling our industry. I would say these are the three most important objectives.
Mm-hmm. Thomas, moving forward and balancing social aspects, economical aspects, and environmental, if you would be able to point the direction of the roadmap, what would you do?
Very simply, have not one tool, one screwdriver, and say, with that one I can repair the entire car, but create a toolbox with many instruments which can work together. Remain flexible to react to seeing what of the instruments works best and which doesn't. Be able to recalibrate the tools while staying on course for the overall target, which is decarbonization. So I think with that philosophy, instead of saying one target, one instrument, job done, we would be on the right pathway and use the digital technologies we have today at our disposals, which really change the game also for smarter regulation.
So bring the toolbox on board and open all the doors and windows. Yeah. Don't close yourself inside the office.
Yeah.
Elder, how can we move forward having these the plates balanced in the balance?
Yes, one point.
scale.
The decarbonization is, of course, a target for the European Union, also for the car manufacturers. The way is how to reach it and how to have these targets that we have in the European Union. So we have to make a balance of all of these, to analyze also the behavior of the consumers. I think is very important because we propose these cars, but maybe the consumers are not prepared to buy them, but is also an important point that is they have to be affordable for the consumers. So at this moment, some of these models are not affordable for consumers in European Union, in some countries of European Union. So you need to have mechanisms to make them affordable. The European package, one of these points, there are a proposal of the small electric car to be affordable in the European Union. Now there is a big discussion also in Brussels about this concept. Also a big discussion about the concept of made in Europe. So we have to clarify this, but the affordability is very important. Also on this question that I mentioned before of the package of incentives for the renewal of the car park is also very important. And of course the grid. The grid is crucial in the electrification, and we don't have in European Union an harmonization between the countries. I mean, to have these highways for electric cars to circulate in European Union in several countries without stress for the use of the electricity. So there are many aspects that, in conclusion, decarbonization is a goal, is a very important objective, but we have to balance how to reach it and to this perspective to be open. As I mentioned also, the technology neutrality is very important. For instance, we have this new target in 2035 of 90%, but the other 10% should be open to the car manufacturers to choose what technology, not as it was in the European package, that they have to comply with the steel of low carbon, decarbonized fuels. That is not with our industry, it's upstream of the car industry. So we need to be more open, more flexible, and to clarify these points.
Okay, we still have some time left. We have a great audience here with us, and we have a great group of specialists. I would invite our audience to make questions, to make some proposals perhaps, or to give some ideas regarding what we've been discussing in the last few minutes. I don't know if anyone has questions, if anyone wants to participate, if anyone wants to add something to the discussion that we've had, if you all agree, or if you don't agree at all.
Hello. So I want to have one question, because truly the age of the car park is clearly one way to go. But if it's in this cycle when China is basically flooding the market and the European market, would it not open too much the door, taking into account this protection that we discussed earlier in discussion? So and this would be a little bit towards Elder? Not sure. Yeah, sorry, standing here. So yeah, if it is in counter-cycle to the business, don't we expose to the Chinese manufacturers to get basically more market share if it's not properly legislated?
Anyone wants to get that? Gonçalo?
Yeah, I think it's a very good question. And I would also leave a question which is, why would you think that cars with 4 or 5 years old, namely diesel cars, why do you think they're all rising in the market price? Why do people nowadays want to buy cars that are no more being made by the industry? It's a good question. Why are those values rising? Because people are perceiving that they are buying cars that are worse. They are buying cars that are more difficult to maintain its life cycle after they have problems with batteries. And they are mainly buying a problem. So what is happening now is this change is opening the doors for we'll start being flooded with Chinese cars everywhere. And then we will be very glad because our car park is being changed and is new. And that's not really what is going to happen because of all of the environmental aspects that are going to be behind all that change. So in my point of view, we need to take it a little bit more seriously, and we need to make some kind of changes regarding all the setup of the incentives and the fiscal incentives regarding all these questions.
Elder, do the manufacturers have anything to say regarding this issue?
Yes, considering the Chinese, I think the question was about because I didn't listen well. Can you, sorry, repeat?
Pode repetir, por favor.
Certainly. So basically you mentioned that the car park is indeed 13 years, 14.5
Yeah,
years
14.
in average. But if we trigger that option now on incentives to renew the car park at this moment in time, maybe we are exposed to the Chinese manufacturers getting a larger market share.
Yeah. Yes, is a good question in reality, but we have regulations. The European Union, as I mentioned, made an agreement with the Chinese car manufacturers 1 year ago. So they are with this agreement now in the table. In fact, last month in the European Union, the Chinese manufacturers represented 7% of the market. They will increase. That is a point that we are in a global economy. They are installing them the production in European Union, and they have to say maybe in 10 years or in 15 years they have the majority of production in European Union. We have employees in European Union, and if we compare to the discussion 15 years ago or 20 years ago, at the time with Japanese manufacturers and after the South Korean manufacturers, now is the global economy working. In fact, that is a reality. They will increase. In my perspective, in the next 2 years, they will represent a large, not majority, but a bigger percentage of the car market in Europe. But in fact, you are correct when you said we give incentives to the renewal of the car park, and maybe the renovation will be with this kind of cars of the manufacturers. It's a reality of the global economy because the European Union made an agreement about tariffs with the car manufacturers. So if they comply, there is a big evolution. I have to say 6 years ago, I was in a car motor show in Macau with several Chinese car manufacturers represented, and at that time, they cannot comply with European rules in terms of safety, environment, everything. Nowadays, they comply with all these rules. It was a huge change in the car industry in China. That is a big question that we have now because they dominate all the value chain of electric cars. Europe is now in a big discussion with another discussion, another issue about the made in Europe. As you know, now we have a big discussion in Brussels about what we can see that is made in Europe. I don't think that we'll have a conclusion on this because we have the cars assembled in Europe, but the car suppliers are in Morocco, are in UK, that are not in European Union. So that is the global economy, as I said. We have to face this new reality to conclude.
Thomas, anything to add?
Well, just one example. I mean, we had many of these scrappage incentives across Europe over the last years. And I also think they are not the very smartest idea.
Yeah.
One option that hasn't even been discussed is to say, if we as manufacturers operate a recycling system, which we will do from 2028 onwards, also because of the European laws on end-of-life vehicles, and we give people money for their old car before it goes on a ship to Nigeria and have it recycled in a proper way so that we can make new cars out of them. Why don't we get a CO2 credit for that?
Yeah.
Like for using green steel, a CO2 credit for earlier recycling of old cars.
Yeah.
That would be a good means. That would mean we would have an incentive to give people money for getting their old car out of the market, have it recycled, get greener materials into the cycle, and contribute to Europeans' resilience without taxpayer money,
Yeah.
without cash from the government,
Yeah.
without the need to buy a new car of whichever origin or size. That's what we are proposing. Think beyond the box. And very clearly, if you have a car that will not drive another 50,000 kilometers in northern Africa, but is recycled at a higher level in Europe, that saves CO2 in a measurable manner. And why not put that into a CO2 equation where you say, hey, if that manufacturer has saved these tons of CO2, why not give him a credit under the regulation system? That's just one idea. We should think more beyond what we have been doing for decades.
Christine, can technology and innovation make the European automotive industry stand out regarding other areas in the globe?
I think we have a lot of talent in Europe and a lot of know-how developed over the years in a lot of the OEMs that are traditional, what we call traditional OEMs. But we have also a lot to learn from the Chinese colleagues. I think we need to admit that the job they did over the past years was amazing. They developed the quality of the vehicles in the extreme velocity. I think what 10 years ago we would say, no, they will never reach the level of quality that we have. This is not the case anymore. So I think now is the time to learn from what China did in the past and see how we can adapt our developing processes on the same way. But of course, they have different conditions than we. We also have to acknowledge that, and I think the challenges are different in both regions. But I'm a truly optimist regarding the future of Europe and our industry, actually.
So, go on learning. That's the main idea. Anyone else wants to add something? This gentleman at the front.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much. My question to you is, my name is Afonso, and I'm an engineer from Técnico. We are building hydrogen cars. And my question to Thomas and Christine is, how is it going to be an objective for BMW, and namely iX5 or hydrogen car? And for Gonçalo and Helder, how is it going to, how long will it be until we can have hydrogen cars in the future of Portugal on our streets? And how is it that work going through? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thomas?
Thank you. I mean, as you alluded to, there will be a serious hydrogen product from 2028 onwards, which will be a fuel cell powered X5 BMW. And clearly, it's again about being resilient. For a hydrogen powered car, you need way less scarce resources compared to a battery car. Hydrogen has the advantage that you can store energy relatively easily. You also have very fast fueling. So do we think that a fuel cell hydrogen car is the best idea for Mini? No. But for larger cars who travel long distances, who may be towing also, it's a very good proposition. And that's why we think that there is a high synergy between saying I use hydrogen for heavy-duty transport and also allow passenger cars to use such an infrastructure. So that is why we think there is an additional option. What concerns me a little bit is that, namely in Brussels, people discuss always either or. If you are for fuel cell, you have to be against electric vehicles with batteries. We say, no, it's have it all. Have all the choices. And every technology has strengths and weaknesses. And if you look at the national energy strategies of countries like Japan or Korea, for them hydrogen is a very important pathway. And that's why we think also in Europe this is a viable option. And again, it will presumably not happen in 27 countries at the same time. But we think if regions, if countries say, hey, for us this, beyond the car even, this is something we want to support, we will say we have the product for that.
So Does that mean that automotive technologies can't have fans like football club? You can have more than one energy type.
Yeah, absolutely.
You don't have to be Bayern or Borussia Dortmund. Or
I mean, I come from Munich here, come on. So, but we believe that, again, it's not just one option. It is many of them.
So it's not football, it's energy. It's industry. Christine, do you want to add anything?
No, I think we are also very excited with the X5 that will launch in 2028 with this technology. We believe it was a very lean project inside BMW actually to develop everything in a very short term. We decided very late that we're going to do it. But just as Thomas said, I think we believe that the diversity of the options is the right approach. And we need to see how the infrastructure developed at the same time, because it's depending, right? So the rollout and the adoption from the public depends a lot on the infrastructure as well. So I think this is key as well for this new technology. But we are very excited to welcome this new vehicle to the fleet. Yeah.
Elder, our Portuguese manufacturer is ready for new technology.
Yes, really ready at the moment. I think also, as Thomas and Christine said, that hydrogen is one of the solutions. When you talk about alternative energy sources, hydrogen is one of them. In Portugal, we have a production of same bus with this source of energy, hydrogen. But the question is the supply. I think at this moment, it will be a solution in the fleets for bus mainly. Heavy trucks must mainly bus, because the question is the problem of the cost of the charging points for hydrogen. I mean, this plant in Portugal, they had a production of bus with hydrogen. They have to move to Spain in order to supply them for the tests. Now it's not the question anymore, but it's an example of the question of the difficulties of the source. So, is a solution, is part of the problem, but very concrete in the next times, it's just an option for fleets in bus. Of course, as far as I know, there are Japanese car manufacturers also had some solution in passenger cars. As far as I know, only in Belgium they are sold, they are in the market, in the Belgian market, not in other countries in Europe, but yes, in Portugal, we have a production of these cars, bus concretely with hydrogen, and will be what will be the future, but mainly for the fleets of bus or heavy trucks.
Marcelo, is the Portuguese government ready to legislate and to endorse this new kind of technology?
Yeah, I would say that's a great example why tech neutrality is important. Because we can lead and at the same point let the industry think on which way to go in that question, because we know that we have a problem of the production and the problem concerning the fuel, because we have to have an infrastructure that can cope with all those challenges. But we have nowadays, even in Cascais, we have 2 buses that are running hydrogen every day, transporting people with the public transport, and they are running, and we are gathering data that is good data, so that we can get the off-taker and build a supply chain that can be made towards that specific goal. And I think with these examples running on and keep developing new examples like this, I think we'll probably reach somewhere that is going to be better. Yeah.
BMW brought us all here today. So, Thomas, would you like to leave a final message to our audience or to someone that might be listening or seeing us?
Oh, thank you so much for sharing that discussion and for everybody attending and participating. As I said in the beginning, Portugal is a fast-moving market and a market that has been showing that with the right mix of framework conditions, you can bring a transformation about with customers and with industry. We need to have, let's say, I think more of that logic across Europe, while acknowledging that things will happen at different speeds and that we need to have a more flexible approach to things.
Yeah.
But with that, I'm not afraid, at least about our future. And by the way, we have a fantastic car over there where we are very confident that it will also succeed in Portugal. Big deal from what we are seeing as reactions to this new electric product.
And we invite everyone to go to the BMW stand and check out that car that Thomas was talking about. At the end of this panel, I believe that we made it clear that success will depend not only on bold targets, but also flexibility, technological openness, and the ability to bring people, industry, and policy along at the same pace. The real challenge is now turning the vision into action in this way that is both credible and inclusive, and let us all move forward together. Elder, Christine, Thomas, Gonçalo, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.